Okay, good Tavach. Today is the birthday of the Rebbe Cashapp. I wanted to share a few stories about the Rebbe Cashapp. And the Rebbe Cashapp and our Rebbe have a very deep connection. When the Rebbe made his first book, Hayom Yom, all of the Rebbes have a on the title page of all their books. There's a design, like a frame for all their books, and they asked the previous Rebbe, what frame should they put for the Rebbe's book? Rebbe's first book, Hayom Yom. What design should they use? You notice all the Rebbes have a different design. The Alter Rebbe has one design, the Mittler Rebbe another design. So what design should they use for the Rebbe's books? So the previous Rebbe said they should use the design of his father, the Rebbe Cashapp. He said, because my father was a Pnimi, and my son-in-law, the Rebbe, is also Pnimi. The word Pnimi is usually translated as someone who is into what they're doing, but the Rebbe Cashapp said a deeper explanation of the word Pnimi. Pnimi, be inside what you're doing, doesn't just mean that you're earnestly and seriously involved in whatever you're doing. The Rebbe Cashapp said it means more. Sometimes you can go through an experience, but the same way you absorb the experience, you let go of it. The same way it entered you, you send it out of you. But a pnimi is someone who is changed. He's changed by an experience. It comes into him. It becomes part of him, and that's where you want to go when you hear a story of a tzaddik. As it says in Hayom Yom, that every story you're supposed to take b'pnimis to pnimis, deeply, deeply inside yourself. And through that, as it says in Hayom Yom, you're able to leave Egypt, you're able to leave your limitations. So on that note, I want to share a few stories, first of all, about the continuum of all of the Rebbes, the connection that all the Rebbes had with each other, which it's just a few stories. There's a lot more to be said on the subject, but regarding the Rebbe Cashapp, there was a chassid Rebbe Cashapp whose name was Reb Pesach Cooper. Reb Pesach, he would be with Rebbe Cashapp when Rebbe Cashapp would leave Lubavitch to go to Dacha. He would go for health reasons to recuperate different spas, and one of the spas I think was called Urshan. And in Urshan, the Rebbe Cashapp, he would join the prayers on Monday and Thursday when the Torah was read, and there was this Reb Pesach. He would come around with a tzedakah box. He'd ask everyone to give tzedakah, and he would empty the box before he went to the Rebbe Cashapp. Why? Because the chassidim, they would want to buy the dollars, the coins, the rubles that the Rebbe Cashapp gave. So one time he came to the Rebbe Cashapp with his box and this tzedakah box, and he told the Rebbe, I sell the money you give me, so please have some good intentions when you put the money in, because this money, your chassidim, they're buying this money up, so please have some good intentions. So Rebbe Cashapp responded, the intention is the more they give, the better. This Rebbe Pesach was instrumental in helping many of the chassidim who needed, he was like a fatherly figure. People needed money to go to buy a ticket to visit Lubavitch. People needed other things. People would turn to this Rebbe Pesach for help. So this Rebbe Pesach, he once visited the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek gave him a blessing. Not just gave him a blessing, but he put his hands on his head. So when Tzemach Tzedek passed away, the Rebbe Marash had an audience. He gave an audience to the same Rebbe Pesach Cooper, and the Rebbe Pesach told the Rebbe Marash, since your father put his hands on my head when I asked him for a blessing, perhaps you could also put your hands on my head. So Marash agreed, and he put his hands on his head and gave him a blessing. After the passing of the Rebbe Marash, he came to the Rebbe Cashapp. He said to the Rebbe Cashapp, your grandfather and your father, when they blessed me, they put their hands on my head. Can you please also put your hands on my head? So Rabbi Cashapp agreed. He put his hands on his head, and then he said, "I want to ask you for a favor in return." He says, "Since my grandfather, and my father both put their hands on your head, I want to ask you also to put your hands on my head and to give me a blessing." So the Pesach, whenever he shared the story, he burst out crying. He would say, "Of course I want to give the Rebbe a blessing." And he sat down, as Rabbi Cashapp instructed him, and put his hands on the Rebbe Cashapp's head, on his holy head, and he gave the Rebbe Cashapp a blessing. There was a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, the Alter Rebbe, the Hillel Parcha. Hillel Parcha was once speaking to the Tzemach Tzedek, and Tzemach Tzedek was holding his grandson, the baby, the Rebbe Cashapp. And the Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek told Reb Hillel, he said, this baby will become a Rebbe. He's exactly like my father-in-law. He's exactly like my father-in-law. The Mittler Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek's father-in-law, was Rebbe before the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek said that his grandson, the Rebbe Cashapp, will be a Rebbe because he said he is exactly like my father-in-law. There was on that note, not really connected to the Rebbe Cashapp, but Rabbi Weiss, shalom, once asked the previous Rebbe's Rebbetzin if the previous Rebbe said anything about our Rebbe. And the previous Rebbe said, the Rebbetzin said that yes, that one time the Rebbe entered the previous Rebbe's room, and the previous Rebbe remarked, "Here comes the Tzemach Tzedek." The previous Rebbe compared the Rebbe to the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek. Here comes the Tzemach Tzedek, when the Rebbe had the same name, and the Rebbetzin had the same name as the Tzemach Tzedek's Rebbetzin. So here comes the Tzemach Tzedek. So there was a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek whose wife had terrible headaches. I don't know in those days if they knew about migraines, what kind of headaches they were, but either way, her husband came to the Tzemach Tzedek asking for a bracha for her headaches. So the Tzemach Tzedek said she should wash herself with hot water, and this would be a cure for her headaches. This worked miraculously until the passing of the Tzemach Tzedek. Once the Tzemach Tzedek passed away, the cure stopped working. So that when after this cure stopped working, the chassid returned again to Lubavitch and went to the son of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Marash, and asked the Marash for a blessing because the cure's not working anymore. So the Marash told the chassid, "Tell your wife she should wash herself with cold water." So she washed her head with cold water, and again, miraculously, the headaches went away. But after the passing of the Marash, the headaches returned. And now, the chassid came to Rabbi Cashapp. "What should I do? My wife's headaches have returned. What should I do?" And he told the Rabbi Cashapp the whole story. The Rabbi Marash said to use cold water. Tzemach Tzedek said to use hot water. "What should we do now?" So the Rabbi Cashapp said, "Take hot water, take cold water, mix it together, and let her wash her head with hot water and cold water mixed together." And sure enough, she did this, and Baruch Hashem, she was cured. Obviously, it wasn't the hot water or the cold water or the mixture of cold water, it's the words, the blessing of the Rebbe that made this happen. On that note, very interesting story happened with a chassid there, Rabbi Cashapp, whose name was Rabbi Avram Elia Gerari. He was married, and he was given as customary in those days, a significant dowry of 10,000 ruble, but he invested the money and he lost it. He lost all of it except for 1,000 ruble. And you can understand that his shalom bayis, his peace at home, wasn't so successful after he lost the family fortune. So he decided to visit Lubavitch and asked the Rebbe Cashapp for a blessing. At that time, the Rebbe Cashapp traveled outside of Lubavitch, and with him he brought his suitcases of various books and other things, and one of his suitcases was lost. So this Rabbi Armelia came, he visited to where the Rebbe Cashapp was to get advice. What should he do? And he didn't, he didn't know about this whole search for the suitcase, but there was a big problem. They couldn't find the suitcase. The Rebbe Cashapp needed these books with him where he was, and he didn't have those books and bothered him a lot. So when he came because he was stuck. He has 1,000 ruble left from the family, from his wife's dowry, and his wife is upset. And what should he do? So he comes to Rabbi Cashapp. The Rebbe Cashapp, as soon as he walks in, the Rebbe Cashapp said, "Oh, Avram Elia, he will help me get back my suitcase. And he tells Avram Elia, he gives him the ticket, tells him to go back to the train station and to please bring him a suitcase. Of course, Rabbi Moshe does the Rabbi Cashapp asks. He goes to the train station and he arrives at the train station at a time where no trains were coming, no trains were leaving. It was a totally empty train station. So he's not sure what to do. The Rebbe instructed him to go to the train station, so he just takes out a cigar. And he's smoking this expensive cigar, and he sees this guy staring at him. So he figures the guy who's staring at him probably wants a cigar too. So he offers this gentleman a cigar. He says, yeah, you could have a cigar. He says, by the way, thank you for giving the cigar. I'm just curious, why are you coming to the train station now? There's no trains leaving, no trains coming. Why are you here now? He says, I'll tell you, my rabbi, his name is Rabbi Schneerson, he came here with his suitcases, and there are no, I think it was in Petersburg, if I remember correctly. He doesn't have his suitcase. He's missing one suitcase. So this guy says, actually, I am the menahel, I am the manager of all of the luggage of the suitcases, and I'm in charge of the warehouse where the lost and found is, where the suitcases are, and it doesn't make sense what you're saying. How could the suitcase be lost? He says, give me the ticket. He gives him the ticket, and he goes to the warehouse, and he calls out to the workers, and he tells the workers, you got to find the suitcase. The workers look in the warehouse. They cannot find the suitcase. The guy gets upset. He screams to them, you have to find the suitcase. And they look again for the suitcase. And finally they found that behind there was a big box in the warehouse, and behind the box was the suitcase. He takes the suitcase, he brings the suitcase to the Rebbe Cashapp, who's very happy to get the suitcase. And the Rebbe Cashapp says, Avram Elia, now I'm a Baal Chayiv, now I owe you something, I have to give you something. What's going on? Avram Elia Gerari told the Rebbe Cashapp what his issue was. Parenthetically, I just want to mention, there was a chassid of the Rebbe named Rabbi Zalman Gerari, a relative of Avram Elia Gerari, and he once did something very special for our Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to him, you could ask for a blessing. So he immediately asked for a blessing for something financial. And the Rebbe said, when you're told to ask for a blessing, you should ask for something which is more valuable. You know what the Rebbe meant. So the first thing you should ask for is nachas from your children, a pleasure from your children. Anyways, so Rabbi Aaron told Rabbi Cashapp, but the issue that he had the issue that he lost 9,000 ruble of the dowry. He has 1,000 ruble left. Rabbi Cashapp asked him, what do you have left? He says, I have 1,000 ruble left. So the Rebbe Cashapp told him to travel to a certain city called Keretz and go to the city. He goes to the city. It was a hot day. He goes swimming. The Rebbe Cashapp said to him, when you go to the city, make sure your wife packs for you some mazenis, some good cake, some good cookies. When you go to this city, bring with you good mazenis. Okay? So he goes to the city of Keretz, and he brings with him some good pastries that his wife bakes special. His wife is very happy to bake these pastries. He has a bracha from the Rebbe to go to the city. This is going to, of course, bring blessing to them. And he gets to the city. It's a hot day, and he goes swimming. After he goes swimming, he sits there next to the ocean, and he eats the good cake that his wife had baked for him. And he's eating the cake. And someone walks over to him and says, hey, why you, what's going on? What brings you to town? He says to him, well, I'm really stuck. I only have 1,000 ruble left, and I had this dowry. This guy says, listen, I want you to come tomorrow. I want you to meet a friend of mine, and we're gonna help you out. Okay. So he comes the next day, and the guy said to him, make sure though you bring the pastries. Apparently, the reason why this guy wanted to help him was because he appreciated the pastries. So he ate the pastries with him next to the ocean, and then the next day he meets Rabbi Elia together with a friend of his, and they again partook of their pastries. And then Rabbi Elia, he tells Rabbi Elia like this. He says, if I understood the story correctly, this man dealt in tobacco paper. In order to make a tobacco cigarette, you have to have tobacco paper. So he had a whole wagon load of this paper. He says, really, it costs a lot more, but I'm going to give I have a wagon load in Kremen Shuk, another nearby city. I have a whole wagon load of this paper. I'm going to sell it to you for only 1,000 ruble. I'm telling you can make much more on it. So, okay, Rabbi Moshe agrees. He gives him 1,000 ruble. He gets this wagon load of paper, and he comes back home. And he goes to another relative of his, Reb Hershel Gerari, and who dealt in this industry. And he asked Reb Hershel if he wants to buy the tobacco paper. Reb Hershel said, "Sure, I'll buy it from you. How much did you pay for it?" He said, "I bought it for 1,000 ruble." He says, "Okay, I'll buy it for you for 2,000 ruble." He says, "No, I need 10,000." He says, "What do you mean you need 10,000?" He says, he tells him that Rabbi Hashem gave him a blessing, and this is to replace his dowry. So Rabbi Hershel says, "Okay, I'll give you 3,000." He says, No. I'm only selling it for 10,000. 10,000 is the price. He said, 10 doesn't make any sense. 10,000. It's not worth 10,000. So the man says, "Listen, I'm only selling." Rabbi Moshe says, "I'm only selling it for 10,000." He goes up to 4,000. So that's my final offer. All right. They part ways. Rabbi Bezalel meets someone else, another person in the industry. He offers him 5,000. Then Rabbi Hershel says this. Rabbi Hershel says, "Tell me where you got this stuff from." Now, parenthetically, I want to say that he asked him where he got it from, and he right away told him. And it's interesting that he told him right away. There is an interesting letter of the Rebbe about the difference between Hasidic good character and Torah good character. The previous Rebbe writes in a story about two Chassidim of the Baal Shem Tov. One was named Rav Nassan, one was named Rav Avram. Rav Nassan was a Torah scholar, but the previous Rebbe writes, he had Torah good character, but not Hasidically good character. But Rabbi Avram, who was not so sophisticated, not so knowledgeable, yet he was blessed with a unique kindness and generosity and a Hasidically good character. So someone wrote to the Rebbe, asked him, "Well, what's the difference?" It says in the same discourse of the previous Rebbe that this Rebbe Nassan, he had good character. So what is the difference between good character but not Hasidically good character? So the Rebbe responded in this way. The Rebbe said that, imagine if you have an industry, you're involved in a certain business, and someone opens up in the same district as you, exactly the same business. So there are two levels of character. One is iskafia, subduing your urges, and the other is ishapcha, transforming them. So I said, for example, the guy opens up across the street from you. He opens up in your district, the same industry. So you could prevail upon yourself not to hate the person if you just think over and over again how you believe in Hashem. And Hashem is the one who provides for you. And since Hashem is the one who provides for you, it's not possible that this person could really take away your livelihood. And conversely, if Hashem wanted to take away your livelihood, without this guy, you would also lose your livelihood. So number one, this guy, if Hashem wants you to have something, you're going to have it. And Hashem doesn't want you to have it, you could take it away without this guy. So why should you feel hatred to this person? And so little by little, by repeating this over and over again, your godly soul could prevail upon your more human, animalistic soul, your more human self, that you shouldn't hate the person so much in your actions. You shouldn't act with hatred. You shouldn't speak with hatred. You shouldn't think hatred. However, the Rebbe continued, you won't love the guy. But then if your godly soul says to you more, your godly soul says to you, but listen, you really believe that Hashem is the one in charge of everything, and therefore this guy can't possibly hurt you. You should actually, you're an expert in your field. Go over to this guy across in your district, in the same industry, and offer him a loan, and offer him advice. Help him out, because you're able to help him. Go to him with love. The same guy that it seems on the surface is affecting you and taking away your livelihood, go over to him and help the guy. That's a different level. Anyway, so Rabbi Hershel asked Rabbi Moshe, where did he get this from? So Rabbi Moshe right away told him. He says, I was in the city, in Keretz, I met this guy. He's the one selling this paper. Oh, okay, I'll go there. Fine. He goes to visit Keretz, and he finds this guy. The guy says, actually, our factory is no longer producing this paper. This is the last paper that we're producing. I only gave it to this guy, your friend, because I felt bad for him. But I'm not making any more of this paper. So apparently there was a great scarcity in this kind of paper. So Rabbi Hershel sent a telegram to Rabbi Moshe saying to him, please don't sell. I'm going to give you the whole 10,000 rubles. Okay. He gives him the whole 10,000 ruble. He covers the entire amount that that he lost. So this Rabbi Avram Elia is very excited, very happy with this, of course. Comes back to the Rebbe Rashab, and he tells Rebbe Rashab what had happened. The Rebbe Rashab, he asked the Rebbe, now what should I do now? So Rebbe Rashab smiled. He said, I already paid back my debt. And now do whatever works for you. He already paid back his debt. That was the agreement. That's the story. I'll tell you one more story. The story just happened this year. It's an unbelievable story. There is a woman named Rina Moyal, and she lives in Ofakim, Eretz Yisrael, in Israel. And the morning of Simchas Torah, she is very distraught because she woke up and she sees a terrorist trying to get into her building where she was. And she sees him a few feet away, and she heard the sirens, but she wakes up, she sees the guy's a few feet away, and he's trying to get he's wrestling with the security fence of the building, and he can't open it. And she's shocked, what's she going to do? As she's staring at him, she's staring death in the face. Her neighbor, Yisrael Techana, he shoots at this terrorist. Yisrael Techana successfully hits the terrorist, and the terrorist is pretty much neutralized, but the terrorist returns the fire as he's dying, and he killed on Rahman al-Islam this Yisrael Techana. Yisrael Techana's birthday is on Simchas Torah. On this year's Simchas Torah, he turned 31. 18 years ago, on his birthday, this Rina Mayal made a cake for him for his bar mitzvah. And since it's his birthday on Simchas Torah, she made a Torah cake for him. And so on his birthday, 18 years later, this year, October 7th, Simchas Torah, she did a favor for him, and she, of course, brought life to his life. He lived for 18 years afterwards in the path of Torah. I'm sure her cake and her kindness and her love contributed to that. And he repaid the favor and saved her life. We really have no idea of the role each of us has in this world, and how Hashem positions us in different places in the world, and what our role is. But number one thing is we have to realize, take b'ptimis to b'ptimis. We have to realize wherever we are, there is a mission. There's a reason we are where we are. And although all we could do, it seems, is just pray for the soldiers. They're on the front lines. But the truth is that wherever we are, we're all connected to each other. And our tefillin and our Torah and our prayers, they matter where we are. We're not all meant to travel to Israel. We're all meant to be exactly where Hashem has placed us. And by us adding more mitzvahs, tefillin, mezuzah, as the Rebbe said, when one Jewish door in one house somewhere has a mezuzah, that brings protection to all the Jewish people. One person puts on tefillin. He's putting on tefillin on Pico and Robertson. But there is a little girl eating pepperoni pizza in Tel Aviv. It protects that little girl. So we're all connected to each other. And we learned in this week's Torah portion how Avram lifted his eyes to run to go greet the guests, and he went with Mesiras Nefesh, with sacrifice. Although he was circumcised and he was so weak, yet he didn't say, "Oh, well, I helped a lot of people till now. Why should I go help this guy?" He lifted himself up, and he says, "This guy's passing by. I'm responsible. I have to take care of him." So the Torah portion this week concludes with the story of the Akedah, how Avram had sacrificed to give up his son to Hashem. So we learn from this that we need to give of ourselves with Mesiras Nefesh, with sacrifice. Hashem doesn't call upon us to pay the ultimate price, but we have to pay attention to the role we're in. We're all connected to each other, and not to be limited. Especially, I just want to conclude with this. The Rebbe said that the Rebbe Rashab, one of his cardinal discourses, is about love for your fellow Jew, a cholzu. That discourse actually says, arm yourself Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, tell the Jewish people, they must arm themselves to fight against Midian, to fight against the nation of Midian. In Kabbalah and Chassidus, Midian is a nation of discord, a nation of arguments, a nation of represents arguments and senseless hatred. So Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, the Jewish people need to arm themselves and fight against hatred. They cannot allow there being discord. The Rebbe Rashab says in this discourse that hatred is something which undermines. It's not just the different character traits which are antithetical to what we're supposed to do. There's, instead of loving Hashem, you might be attracted to loving the things you shouldn't love. But there's something which is against the entire corpus of holiness, and that is discord. Discord is against the entire existence of holiness. So the Rebbe Rashab said that we have to arm ourselves and fight against discord. We're in the army. It matters. Our unity together affects Jews everywhere they are. As we say every day in our prayers, bless us, our Father, always one. So, among other things, everybody said that what we're supposed to learn from the day of the 20th of Cheshvan is to think about Avas Yisrael, learn this discourse that Rebbe Rashab, and he says in the long discourse, makes many points. Among them, one of the points he makes is that since this is the litmus test of holiness is all about inclusion and connectedness. Therefore, this is something which the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, fights so strongly against, and therefore you have to do mechepes mechupas. You have to really search in yourself to see, is there something that you're doing that's causing discord? Because discord is something which unfortunately contained everything you're doing to serve Hashem. It can mess everything up that you're doing to serve Hashem. Therefore, you have to rid yourself of anything that's causing any separation between you and another. On that note, Baruch Hashem, in our synagogue, it was beautiful today to see unity of two families which were previously not that way, and the Baruch Hashem, it has a ripple effect and it brought more love to other people, and it's something which brings blessing. The Shalah writes that one argument can push away 100 opportunities, 100 financial opportunities, 100 opportunities of blessing. So imagine, you bring yourself closer to another person that you're previously at odds with. You can imagine what kind of blessing it brings to you and to all of our people. So the main thing is, Hashem should bless us all as one. We should see the main blessing of Vayere love Hashem. Just like Hashem appeared to Avram, in merit of him going out of his way to help another person, saying at the entrance of his tent, no matter how hard it was, so too the Rebbe says Hashem reveals himself to us and shows himself to us in a revealed way, in a vivid way, when we go out of our way to help others. Even though we may not feel we're seeing something, but that's what happens. You go out of your way to help someone, the Eibush reveals himself to you in a vivid way, and the vivid way is not just that Hashem, you see Hashem answering your request for a blessing or anything, but the main thing is that we should see Hashem's revelation, the coming of Mashiach, the true Ku'ula to Mashiach Tzedkeinu B'Karav Mamash. L'chaim, l'chaim, afrei l'chavach, good avach.